Hey, you are listening to the Calm On podcast. It's your girl, Michelle Grosser here. Thanks for being with me today. Today on the show, we're going to talk about some sneaky habits, or maybe just some things that we've been doing without really realizing it that might be making our anxiety worse. But before we jump in, I want to thank all of you who have left the show a 5-star rating and a short review. Man, it just means so much to me. You guys know that. I talk about it almost every episode. I love reading your reviews. I love hearing your feedback. I love hearing about how the show has made an impact on you. I love learning what you like to know about and what you like me to teach about so I can give you more of that. And I just wanted to share this review that came in recently from Lisa C. She says, I love Michelle's focus on the science behind burnout. It's been so helpful for me to understand the deeper reasons for my burnout beyond just the busy career and single parenting so that I can take control of it. Thank you, Michelle, for breaking this down so clearly and offering tangible and tactical strategies. Oh, Lisa, thanks so much for that. I really, really appreciate it. It warms my heart. And if you guys are listening and you've enjoyed anything about this podcast, you learned anything, and if you have not yet left the show a 5-star rating or a short review, if you could do that today, holy moly cannoli, I'd be so grateful for you. And if you have left the show a 5-star rating and a short review, just thank you. You guys are the best. All right, let's jump in. It's summer. It's July. July is like so fun for us. It always is the beginning of summer. We have so much to celebrate in our family. July 3rd is our anniversary. We got married on Friday, July 3rd, 2009. So this year we celebrated 15 years married, you guys, which is wild to me. Praise God. 4th of July, so fun, the fireworks and all the things. And then the next day, July 5th, which was Friday this year, is Ashton's birthday. So we have like 3 days back-to-back celebrations. And then Jeff and I actually had the honor on Friday night on July 5th of officiating a wedding of a couple who's so special to us. Man, we've officiated quite a few weddings together now. We do it together. He's like the wordsmith and the poet and the romantic. He's like so gifted with all of that stuff. And it's so special to be able to do it together. It's one of my favorite things. So it's been a full week. It's been a great week. And like many of you, it's also really nice to get back into the day-to-day routine. Am I right? All right, so let's jump in. All right, so I kind of want to talk today about some like easy to overlook habits that might be fueling our anxiety. So we're going to explore some of these kind of hidden triggers that can make our anxiety worse. As always, I'll give you guys the neuroscience and kind of the psychology insights behind all of it. Let's jump in. 3 habits that are making your anxiety worse. Habit number 1. Habit number 1 has to do with what you are drinking and what you are not drinking. So we're going to start with caffeine. How much caffeine are you drinking and when are you drinking caffeine, right? That is the habit. The way in which you drink caffeine is a habit that may be making your anxiety worse. Caffeine, yes, definitely it can provide us with a temporary energy boost, right? It helps to enhance our alertness and it has a huge impact on our nervous system, you guys. So it can actually worsen anxiety in quite a few different ways. The first one is that it increases our heart rate and our blood pressure, right? We know that caffeine stimulates the central nervous system. We've all probably had one too many cups of coffee, right? Or for me, it's like if my husband orders a cold brew and I've already had a morning coffee and I'm like, oh, can I have some of that? And I'm like 2 sips in and I'm like, oh, I already regret that. I already regret that. Maybe you've had that experience also. If you're someone who tends to experience anxiety, having those physical impacts of caffeine, that increased heart rate and that increased blood pressure, that can kind of mimic our anxiety symptoms. And sometimes it can exacerbate how we're feeling. The other thing about caffeine is it actually triggers the release of adrenaline. And we know that that's the hormone that's responsible for a fight or flight response. So we've all had, like I was saying, right? Too much caffeine. We feel like the jitters. We feel more nervous. We feel more on edge. Those are all common anxiety symptoms. So we want to make sure that we're just being mindful with our caffeine if we're already feeling kind of on the more anxious side. We know caffeine can disrupt our sleep. It actually increases our cortisol levels, which is our body's stress hormone. And then some of us are much more sensitive to caffeine than others. So kind of just being aware of your caffeine sensitivity. Like I know for myself, I have a cup of coffee in the morning. I don't have any more caffeine during the day. I certainly don't have caffeine after noon because I know it's going to impact me when I'm ready to go to sleep. Other people are different and they have different sensitivity to stimulants. So just kind of notice how sensitive you are to caffeine. Some of us are more sensitive than others, and then, proceed accordingly. What's really helped me when it comes to caffeine as it relates to anxiety is swapping out my first drink of the day and then having my coffee a little bit later with breakfast. And the reason I started doing this is because our cortisol levels peak when we wake up in the morning, right? Our cortisol levels are supposed to peak at that time. And that's actually what brings our body out of sleep and into a conscious state of wakefulness and awareness, right? So that's supposed to happen. So if we're someone who already struggles with anxiety and then our cortisol levels are already peaked when we wake up in the morning, and then 2 minutes later, we're dumping a bunch of caffeine into our system at the same time that our cortisol levels are naturally peaking. Y'all, if you struggle with anxiety in the morning, that is a recipe for disaster, right? So if you can wait even like 30 minutes before you have your coffee in the morning to let those cortisol levels kind of start to level out, it's going to make a huge impact in that level of anxiousness and anxiety in the morning. So what I started doing this in January, and it's made such a difference. You guys, I used to feel super anxious and like have that urgency, like that anxious, like, I got so much to do today. The minute I woke up in the morning, I started swapping out my first drink of the day. So now what I do is I drink my happy juice when I wake up. I'm becoming hydrated, right? Because I mix it with water. And then I just delay my coffee about 30 minutes. Like I still have my coffee. I'm not crazy, but I just delay it 30 minutes later. I eat it with my breakfast. So I'm getting some protein while I'm eating it, which is so much better for my gut. And then I'm also allowing those cortisol levels to kind of come back down and level out a little bit before I have caffeine in my system. You guys know I'm obsessed with Happy Juice. It's the only product I've ever endorsed since the inception of the Calm On podcast. It's the only product I've ever agreed to be an affiliate for because I just believe in it so much. I started using it in January. It's made such a big difference in my mental and emotional health and my energy levels and my mood. And now my whole family takes it. So if you guys aren't familiar, Happy Juice is 3 powder supplements that you just mix together. I mix it together in water. It tastes so good. The first supplement is called Mentabiotics. That improves our gut-brain axis. So that optimizes our mental wellness. And here's the thing. 90% of the serotonin in our body, which is that feel-good, happy chemical, right? That feel-good neurotransmitter, 90% of it is produced in our gut. So we really have to prioritize our gut health, and the Mentabiotics helps us to do that. It lowers cortisol. It enhances calmness, less anxiety, more serotonin, more GABA, more dopamine production. That's the first powder supplement. The second powder supplement is called Edge. That's an all-natural nootropic. So that is like brain food, you guys. It's completely plant-based. It supports our mental flow, mind-body endurance, better neuron regeneration. And then the last powder supplement that I mix in is Energy Plus. And that's what delivers that like smooth, clear, clean, focused, like reliable, awesome, all natural energy without the jitters and without the crash, right? So I get the motivation, I get the clarity, but I don't get any of the jitters or the crash. And then Happy Juice comes in either in 2 options, right? Either with or without caffeine. So there's a link in the show notes if you guys are interested. You can save $10, and I preloaded carts for you there, either with caffeine or without caffeine. So whatever your preference is, you can choose and you can try it out there. But man, in the clinical trials, it's just been crazy. 105% decrease in negative mood. This is what the people reported after taking Happy Juice. 64% decrease in fatigue, 54% decrease in tension, 55% decrease in anxiety, and a 211% increase in positive mood. So give it a shot. And then just monitor your body's response, right? If you are going to try to have your caffeine with breakfast, if you're going to swap out your morning drink like I did and start with Happy Juice and then have caffeine with breakfast, just notice how your body responds, right? You can even like open a note on your phone or keep a journal and just track your caffeine intake and note any changes in your anxiety levels. So that's the first thing. The second thing about what you're drinking and not drinking, we just talked about caffeine. The next thing is alcohol. Alcohol, I think so often we think of, or we've been conditioned to believe that alcohol is like a great way for us to relax, especially if we're feeling anxious, right? We're feeling like all wound up and activated, and alcohol can feel like a really effective way to just take the edge off, to just chill out and unwind. But here's the thing about alcohol. Over time, it actually has a pretty significant negative effect on our anxiety, especially those of us who might be prone to being higher anxiety. Because it's temporary relief, right? It's like a short-term solution to a long-term problem. And while alcohol can provide temporary relief, right? We've all like experienced in the moment where you're like, oh, I feel like I can like finally breathe. And like that tension in my chest has finally just like dissipated and released. It actually leads to increased anxiety over time. So as the alcohol wears off, you kind of have this rebound effect where your anxiety returns even stronger. And it's because alcohol affects the balance of the neurotransmitters in our brain, especially those neurotransmitters that are related to our mood and our anxiety, right? Serotonin, GABA, and that disruption can increase our feelings of anxiety. Again, why it's so important to focus on our gut health, why it's so important, at least for me, to make sure I'm getting in my daily happy juice, to make sure that I'm producing all of those neurotransmitters. And then sleep. Alcohol can help us fall asleep, right? It makes us feel drowsy. If you have that glass of wine or that cocktail before bed, and it kind of makes you relax and fall asleep better. But here's the thing. Alcohol actually has a significant disruption in our sleep cycle. So yes, maybe it does help you fall asleep, but it actually leads to poor quality sleep. It actually makes you wake up more frequently during the night, and that contributes to heightened anxiety. So if you choose to drink, just do so in moderation, right? For us women, probably no more than a drink a day. And then what I try to do is I try to have it earlier in the day. So maybe I'll have a drink while I'm making dinner, but then that's it, right? So I have time for my body to metabolize that alcohol and process that alcohol before I'm going to go to sleep and before I want to get a really good night's rest. All right. And then the last thing, I guess, in this, like what you're drinking and what you're not drinking thing is the obvious, maybe. How much water are you drinking, right? Increasing your water intake is going to have a big impact on your anxiety. Being dehydrated, you guys, makes your anxiety worse. It affects the balance of your hormones. It affects the balance of those neurotransmitters in your brain, cortisol, your stress hormone. It increases cortisol levels, which can increase your stress and anxiety. So we've got to get that hydration in. It's crucial for the production and the function of those really important neurotransmitters like serotonin that are responsible for regulating your mood. Also, why I take happy juice. I not only drink it with water, but I know that it's supplementing all of those feel-good neurotransmitters so that my mood and my energy level and my focus and all of these things are where I want them to be, right? Making sure I'm getting those right probiotics, prebiotics, phytobiotics in my gut microbiome, making sure it's diverse, making sure it's healthy so I can produce the serotonin I need to feel really good. So that's number one, what you're drinking and not drinking: caffeine, happy juice, alcohol, and water. Number two, the second habit that might be making your anxiety worse is your consumption of the news and social media. It's election season. For some of you, that might not mean much. For others, it's probably a really big deal. But here's the thing, you guys. Our brain is wired to pay attention to negative information. It's a survival mechanism, right? It's called negativity bias. So when we have constant exposure to negative news, that can keep our brain in this heightened state of like alert, 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 right? Our amygdala, which is our brain's alarm center, it becomes overactive. And that like constant stream of bad news, of alarming news, of sensationalized news, of like doom and gloom news can make us feel like we're in a state of perpetual threat. And then also from a psychological standpoint, continuously consuming negative news can lead to this phenomenon that's so fascinating. It's called mean world syndrome. And what happens when we're constantly watching this stuff, this negative news, is that we start to actually perceive the world to be more dangerous than it really is. It starts to distort our view. And that can increase, obviously, our anxiety, right? It increases our feelings of helplessness. It makes it harder to manage our stress. So we just want to be really aware of what it is that we are consuming and of our negativity bias and, what it is that we're letting in. And then the other side of the coin to that is information overload, right? And decision fatigue and overstimulation. From a neuroscience perspective, our brain has limited capacity, right? It's like a computer with limited hard drive. There's only so much space in our brain, you guys. And if you're anything like me, like y'all, I already have a lot going on up there, right? I already have a ton of stuff I've got to manage. So when I take my everyday life and then I just like bombard it with endless, news, social media updates, pings, dings, notifications, it does not take long for me to get to information overload. And that can impair my prefrontal cortex. That's a part of our brain that's responsible for decision making. It's the part of our brain that's responsible for self-control. So when our prefrontal cortex is overwhelmed by all of this information, not only does it lead to decision fatigue, but it makes it harder to cope with daily stress and it increases our anxiety. And then from a psychological perspective, when we're like constantly sifting through all of this information, right? Like everything that's coming at us, guys, that's mentally exhausting. So decision fatigue kind of sets in. We're forced to make too many decisions. It reduces our ability to make good decisions, and that increases our feelings of anxiety and overwhelm. So that's number 2. And then the third habit that might be making your anxiety worse, and I think a lot of you are probably going to relate to this just in what I know about you and those of you that I've worked with, we are addicted to busyness. So like raise your hand if that's you, right? We're addicted to busyness. If you're anything like me, if you're anything like the women that come through Restore or my one-on-one coaching, you are almost always busy, right? Someone asks us how we're doing. We're like, oh, I'm so busy, right? One thing to the next. We're doing one thing. We're planning and already anticipating the next. It's this like phenomenon of nexting, right? We can't be present. It's hard to slow down. There's no margin in our calendar. It's just chock full of like places to be, stuff we got to do. We're always thinking about the next thing, right? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And that will cause us anxiety. That will make our anxiety worse. When we're busy all the time, it keeps our brain and our body in this constant state of heightened alertness, right? So we're chronically activating our body's stress response, and our body is chronically busting out cortisol and adrenaline. And these hormones are super helpful in like short bursts, but it's not how our body is designed to have these hormones be pumped out all the time, right? If we're constantly feeling stressed and we've got stuff to do and we've got places to be, what happens is that leads to an overactive amygdala, right? That's our brain's like alarm center, our fear center. And it suppresses our prefrontal cortex, which is the part of our brain that helps with our executive function, right? Making decisions, emotional regulation. So when there's that imbalance, because our body is constantly pumping out cortisol and adrenaline because we don't know how to rest and slow down, that imbalance makes it harder for us to manage stress, and it makes our anxiety worse. And then the second thing is that when we don't have downtime, you guys, when we don't schedule in like margin in our calendar, when we don't make time for recovery, it has a huge impact because our brain actually needs periods of rest to consolidate all the things that it's processing, right? Our brain needs rest to consolidate our memories, to consolidate and process information, to recover from just like the stress of day-to-day life. So when we're constantly busy and we don't have enough downtime built into our routines, that disrupts this really important recovery process. So our brains, it's called a DMN, our brain's default mode network, which is active while we're resting. It's active while we're reflecting and slowing down. And it plays a crucial role in self-reflection, right? It plays a crucial role in emotional regulation. So when we don't have the time to slow down and rest and reflect, we're not sufficiently activating that DMN, which might lead to us experiencing heightened anxiety and actually decreasing how our brain functions, right? Decreased cognitive function. And then finally, the last thing I'll say about this like addiction to busyness is that it actually has a huge impact on our sleep. So if you're going all day long and you have this super busy lifestyle and it's one thing to the next without any time for recovery and rest and reflection, and maybe we're even like staying up too late to get stuff done, right? How many of us have done that? Or it's because like our mind is so active that we're expecting our body to be able to just like flip the switch and turn off, right? We've been going all day and we're like, oh, it's 10:30, time to magically just shut it down and turn it off. It's not how our body works. It's not how our brain is designed to work. So what happens is that it's really hard for our brain to kind of switch gears, and then we don't sleep well, right? And we know what happens when we don't sleep well. It disrupts the balance of those neurotransmitters we've talked about. It disrupts the balance of the stress hormones. It exacerbates our anxiety. Lack of really restful, restorative sleep impairs the function of our prefrontal cortex. Again, so it's just harder to regulate our emotions, and it increases our feelings of anxiety. So where do we go? I'm going to leave you with two things. The first is I'm going to encourage you to take a look at your boundaries. Our boundaries for busyness, our boundaries around what we're consuming in the news and media and social media, our boundaries around what we're consuming into our bodies, right? Hydration, caffeine, alcohol, supplements, all of these things are going to have an impact. So how can you set boundaries around what is and is not acceptable, right? What is and is not enough or too much or just right for you and your body and your nervous system? What do effective, healthy, helpful boundaries look like around your time and around your calendar and around your commitments, right? Taking a good look at your boundaries around these three areas are going to have a huge impact for you. And then the second one is kind of related. Y'all just schedule some downtime. Don't overthink it. It doesn't have to be this big like whole spa day. What if instead of sitting at your computer, you just got up and didn't eat lunch at your desk, but you went to eat it, outside without your phone and without a screen and without social media and without your email, and just had a brain break, right? My kids in kindergarten and first grade, like they have brain breaks through the day and they don't do work and they put on like a song or something and they just have a brain break. And it's brilliant because we need that as adults too. So that's my second piece of coaching around this. Schedule some downtime every day. Schedule a brain break every day, just a short break throughout the day to help you kind of recalibrate. Make sure your brain is getting the rest and the relaxation and the space that it needs to process and run efficiently. And then schedule in longer periods as you can, right? Are you actually taking the weekends off? How could you schedule in more relaxation or more play or more fun or more activities, hobbies that you actually enjoy? Those are so healing for our nervous system, and they will make your anxiety better instead of making it worse. All right, my friends, that's what I've got for you today. Thanks for being with me. I always enjoy my time with you guys. I'll talk to you soon.